Hey friends, I'm Otis Gibbs, and this is my buddy Jon Byrd. He's going to share some wisdom about culture being all around us, whether we realize it or not.
Well, it's a college town, and it's a college town in Alabama. I was growing up in Monroe County, which is Harper Lee's home county. She and my mom went to the same high school, but it was not a cultural center. And growing up in a college town, I actually got to hear Abby Hoffman speak when I was 14 in the late 60s. I got to hear Badfinger in one of their very, very few national tours, like playing on a Sunday afternoon on the quad or whatever. It was in Foster Auditorium. But okay, so.
Did it sound good?
Oh my gosh, they were genius. They were, oh wow. Being from Alabama, these cultural things, for me, Tuscaloosa was a place that made it possible for me to think outside of myself and outside of my raisin, as they might say, and in a good way. So Tuscaloosa was great. But football is ubiquitous. It's a football town. And when I lived in Chicago, first time I went to a baseball game, I said, "So are we going to win today?" We're going to Wrigley. And they're like, "I don't know, maybe." I was like, "What?" Because growing up in a football town, there's 10 games or 11 or whatever. And every one of them, we're going to win today? Yes, So I had no concept. I played baseball as a kid. I didn't understand baseball as poetry and art, as Peter Cooper would say. And but I was Bear Bryant's paper boy as a kid. And the thing is that sounds very cool, but somebody had to throw him a paper. And he was living in a fairly humble home, relatively, yeah. And I was on my Suzuki 125 throwing papers, and one day he pulls up in his Cadillac and, "Hey, why don't you ever collect for the paper?" I'm like, "Coach, you don't pay for the paper." It's like, I'm supposed to throw this and get the heck out of here. And he goes, "Hold on a minute." And he goes, I thought I was in trouble, of course. And he comes back out and hands me a $20 bill. And $20 in 1969, not bad, And if you think I still wish I had that $20 bill, no, you're wrong. Yeah, it was just everywhere. I mean, one time I sold programs for the games when I was 13, when I first moved to Tuscaloosa, and they had Bryant come in and talk to the kids selling the programs. "Here's what we're going to do today. You're going to sell programs. They're 10 cents a piece, and you're going to make your mama proud." And it's all that. And I was like, okay, yeah. I know, it's silly, but it's strangely formative, just because that age and that moment and all that. Well, I like to tell people I had pizza with Bear Bryant one time, because we were both at the Pizza Hut having pizza. He would not necessarily know that he had pizza with me, but I had pizza with, we were in the same room. That's what I mean to say, though, about growing up. And I wanted to get away. That's why I moved to Chicago. I wanted to move to a city. I wanted to go where the culture was. I wanted to go where the art was. And I did that in my way, but what you don't realize is that there's culture and art and important, fascinating things. I mean, Bryant is this monumental coach, and there's almost no translation for it today. And I tell people now when they say, "Are you like your coach?" I'm like, I'm not a fan of coaches. I'm a fan of schools. I'm like the Beach Boys, be true to your school. I'm like, somebody goes, "I hate Alabama. I'm an Auburn guy." I'm like, yeah, good, excellent. I don't think that it's for everybody. I don't. I mean, So, Bryant was this, he loomed large, and when you get out of Alabama and you go to Minnesota or you go to New York or you go to California and you go, blah, 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 and Bear Bryant. "Oh, Bear Bryant, really?" I'm like, yeah. Yeah, he was real. He was just a guy, and he was gruff and sweet. I don't know. That's a weird combination, but he was that. I wanted to tell you, though, for example, about Johnny Shines, having the last guy to tour with Robert Johnson, to live in my town, or Holt, right next to Tuscaloosa, and he was a customer at my dad's auto parts store. And I remember going to see either Jackson Browne or Neil Young. This would have been 71. I was 15, maybe. So Bonnie Raitt was opening, and she did a few songs, and I'm there to see the dude singing. But man, a girl playing the slide it was mind-blowing. It was amazing. And then she goes, listen, this is Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and y'all have someone that y'all should know. He lives here, and he's one of your citizens, and I'm going to bring him out, and we're going to play some music together. And she brought out Johnny Shines, and I just was like, Mr. Shines? Because I just knew him as a customer. And I went back home. I remember going back home telling my dad, Daddy, you're not going to believe this, but Mr. Shines plays guitar, and he might be famous. And oh, now, come on. Well, the next time Johnny Shines came in the store, my father goes, Shines, my boy tells me you play the guitar. Yes, Mr. Byrd, I do. Well, he says that, you traveled, and you might be a little bit famous. Oh, I don't know, but I travel. And he goes, well, Shines, when are you going to tell me this? And Johnny Shines goes, Mr. Byrd, I come in here for brake shoes. I come in here for fuel pumps. I don't come in here to talk about guitar. And my dad was like, that's fair. Well, how can I help you? But that's in your backyard. And I'm trying to get away from Alabama as fast and as hard as I can, and for many good reasons. But I went to see Bob Dylan before I got out, and this was 81, before I left. I graduated from Alabama College and going to go to Chicago. But I went to see Bob Dylan, and halfway through, he didn't talk much. Halfway through, he introduced the band. Half the band was from Alabama because it was all Muscle Shoals. It was Spooner, one of the McCrary sisters. I was like, why am I leaving so hard? But my mind was made up. I'm moving to the city, and I lived in Chicago for 1 year. It was too cold. I moved to Atlanta, and I was in Atlanta for 20 years and raised my daughter, and it worked out great. But I came back around because here's the thing I discovered when I started singing and recording myself. I sing with my mother's accent, and my mother didn't say Sarah. She said Sarah. I don't say can't, but I sing can't. And I had to come to peace or terms with that, I taught college classes, and I taught speech at a HBCU in Atlanta. I know how to speak. I should say, I know how to, I know how to speak. And yet, when I was trying to get to some core of a song and my voice and a connection, my mom's accent, my mom's Monroe County, South Alabama accent comes out. And I had to make peace with that. But it's all a big circle, like get away from it and then come back around and kind of make peace with. I used to have this philosophy that, whatever my dad did, I did the opposite. And then before I was 30, I realized, wait, he's still defining me. If I'm doing everything the opposite of my old man, then he's still defining who. So then I had to go, wait a minute. I'm just going to take the good stuff and leave the bad stuff and be my own person, but make peace with my roots. So that's my story about that, coming back around to all that. But yeah, you're growing up I'm fortunate enough to grow up in a college town where I had culture and art, poetry, in my backyard, and I didn't really quite realize how good and how cool it was.